Greetings, UVIT data reducers. This is a tutorial on how to process and merge multiple observation IDs, that is, multiple L1 files of the same target. So the target may have been observed at different epochs under different observation IDs, under different proposal IDs, and so you want to merge and process these different epochs of observation together. One reason you might want to do this is to create a deeper time exposure of the target, or because you want to register the fields all together at the same time so that the different observation epochs all perfectly align in the final science images. So we begin with a folder of the target name, which is, for example, right here, VCC89. So you should start with a folder that's the name of your target, okay? Don't just call it folder A or folder B or working or something like that. Call it the name of your target, all right? So if we look in this folder, we see that I have two folders which contain the L1 files. Recognize that as an L1 file, and you'll recognize this as an L1 file, yes? So the reason why I've named them this way is because these are actually the same observation proposal ID A10071T01, but they were observed at two different times. We have 9 orbits in the first one, and we have 12 orbits in the second one. And these weren't observed together. These were, in fact, observed several years apart, although they have the same observation ID. So when you have a case like that, if you look carefully at the L1 file, you'll see that the observation ID and then this following string is a unique identifier. So I've used that part of the L1 file to give its parent folder a unique name. And then if we go to this one here, it's that same observation ID, but this following little bit is unique. So that's what I've used for naming the folders. If these were different, for example, this one is A10071T01, but if you had, say, G06056, T01, then that would be fine because they would be different. You just need to have some sort of unique naming, which is relevant to the orbit. I mean, you could just call it A and B if you wanted, but I mean, CCD Lab does look at the folder names for naming its files internally in intermediate processing steps. So if you name the folders things that make sense, then CCD Lab will use those folder names to name your files, and then the files will continue making sense to you, right? So the parent folder, where this is all going to happen inside, is VCC89. That's a target. And then we have the subfolders with the L1 files. So all you do at this first step is you simply process each of these as you normally would, and you process it through registration. So you process each of these L1 files through and including the step of registration, but no further than registration. Okay, so don't do merging, don't want to do merging after registration. Just stop after you've done registration. Okay, so I have done that step now for these two folders, these two L1 files, and of course you could have more, 3, 4, however many you want, of the same target. And now we see that we're in this intermediate state where we have this folder structure now. So the archive, the L1 archive has been placed here. We have some digested L1 files, and then we have an FUV folder, which contains, in this case, only a single channel filter, but several orbits, right? Now, of course, there could be multiple FUV filters for this target. That would be no problem. And of course, there could be NUV or NUV images as well. In any case, for this example, it's only FUV. And so the second folder is structured the same. So anything that overlaps, anything that's identical will eventually be merged. Anything that's not will not be, right? Obviously, it stays consistent with your filter and channel combination. Okay, so within each of these folders, registration has been done. Now what we want to do is we want to register these two folders together. We want to do that now so that we don't have to do it later. So if we simply go back to CCD Lab and we do registration, general registration, okay, for these images I wanted to use a pixel resolution of 2 because they're pretty faint images. So now I'm going to select the parent folder. Okay, I'm not going to select the subfolders because you've already done that step. They've already been registered within themselves. Now I want to register them to each other. So I select the parent folder. Okay, select OK. And of course, you know this process. You simply select the points. I already know what the points that I need are. I need that point and I need this one. Okay, now we don't want to run through automatically because between the two different epochs, there's probably going to be a shift. So within each epoch of observation, we've done the registration already, so they're all going to be consistent. But when this registration goes from the first folder to the second folder, then we'll probably see a shift, and that's where we need to perform the registration manually. So don't run through automatically. And let's just continue. So for the first, either 9 or 12, depending which folder it was, they'll all be lined up. We don't have to do anything because that was done previously. Okay, now, see, this point doesn't line up anymore. And why is that? Because we've switched to the other folder. And the only difference is that it's a smaller rotation in our case. Sometimes the rotation would be big. Sometimes it would be a big shift too. This is obviously preferential, where there's not much of a shift and not much of a rotation either. Okay, so now we know that we can just continue because the rest of these are going to be lined up because there was only 2 folders. If you had a third folder, you'd have to be careful and watch for when it skips into them. So 21 images altogether. You're already familiar with this sort of a step, but just to demonstrate. So now the 2 folders images are all aligned perfectly with each other. So that means we won't have to perform any more registration later. Okay, so now the next step that we want to perform is this new option called Merge Multiple L1 Observation IDs. Okay, and we have an option in here. First of all, there's help info instructions. Okay, so we can just read that. This assists the user in merging L1 data sets of the same target from different observation IDs or L1 files. Instructions: make a parent folder with target name. Place the L1 files inside the parent folder in their own subfolders. So we've already been through that. Process each L1 file as per normal through registration only. Do not perform merging of orbits. Oh yeah, I left out of the instructions here about registering the 2 folders together. Okay, so what we do now is, so here's an option, keeping observation IDs. So what that refers to is whether or not we want to keep the individual observation IDs as their own master images, which will come out for their own exposure times, or if we want to just discard them and just create a total merged file of all these files put together into one, right? And so why would you want to do that? Why would you want to keep the originals? I can't really imagine why you would actually want to keep the originals. Say, for example, say that this exposure is 8,000 seconds and this one was 10,000. So if we put them together, we're going to get 18,000 seconds, which is obviously better. But why would you want to keep the original 8,001 and 10,000 second? Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. We'll just do the case where we're pretending that we would. In general, I don't think you would, but let's just pretend that we are going to keep the originals, right? So in that case, in this option, we say keep observation IDs. So that'll keep the originals. So all we do is double click this and now read the instructions, select a parent directory of the L1 folders. And it may take a few minutes to complete or a few moments to complete. So that's the parent directory. We simply take that. And if we look at it here, now we see that there's a new folder here. And this is pausing while it copies files. Now it says it's done. Okay, ID is copied to the new parent folder. If we didn't have that option checked, then it would say moved, and it would actually go faster because it's a lot faster to move a file than it is to copy a file. So now in this folder, that's right underneath the parent directory, so this FUV folder, and of course if there were NUV files, then there would be an NUV folder as well. But for this FUV folder, it's FUV BAF2, now we see that all 21 orbits have been put together here. Because there was 9 in the one observation ID, and there was 12 in the other observation ID. So they're all here now. Okay, and because we kept the originals are still here as well. If we didn't keep them, then these FUV subfolders would not be here anymore. Okay, but we decided to keep them just for demonstration. So now what we want to do, we know that the images are all registered, don't we? Right? We know that we've already done registration. So this folder, which now contains all observation IDs, all put together, we know that they're all registered to each other because we already did that in a previous step, so we don't have to redo it. So that's why it was useful to do it before. Okay, so now all we have to do is go merge. And we select, of course, the parent folder. If you selected a subfolder, then all it would do was the files in the subfolder. So again, obviously select the parent folder. And if we watch carefully the message, we should see that there's 3 files. It's going to be making 1 file out of the 21 orbits here. It's going to be making 1 image out of this one and the 9 orbits here. And it's going to be making another one out of the 12 orbits here, all master images out of those. Of course, as I said, if we chose not to copy, then these wouldn't be here, and all we would get out is this final merge set. Okay. All right, so let's hit that parent folder and press OK. So there, it's doing 21, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. There, perfect. Converting and done. Okay, so now if we look at the file at the exposure time over here, so 20,000 20,066 seconds, and that's probably for the parent. And if we go over here, it's 11,440 and then 8,600, right? So we see that we have, this is the total merged set and of all observation IDs combined, and these are the individual observation IDs, okay? So at that point, it's finished. At that point, then all you do is proceed with the regular stuff. If you want to do point source optimization, you can have it do that. If you want to have it do registration, you can, or sorry, not registration, but the WCS solution, you have it do that and derotate. But it is basically as simple as that. Let's just actually finish that up together. So let's pretend we've done the WCS and we've done, what else needed to be done? So yeah, let's pretend we've done the WCS solution, the point source optimization, and the derotation. Let's pretend we've done that. And now we're going to go finalize. So again, for finalizing, it's going to finalize everything that's loaded. And if we look inside what's happening in the folder here, everything is getting put up here. And then it's going to compress that for us. So of course we have 6 images because one's the exposure array and one is the image. And then it packages all up for us. No, we don't need to open. We already have it open. So it's all packaged up for us now in bcc.zip, bcc89.zip. So of course, we see that here's that first observation epoch, master image. Here's the second one. And then this one is the combined because it doesn't have any of this stuff. It just has the folder name, the parent folder name used for its appendage in the file name bcc89. And here's the actual images, right? So that's the first observation epoch, that's the second observation epoch, and then this is the combined. Okay, and then these folders have all been cleaned up of the intermediate subdirectory, intermediate processing files, except for the L1 file that's left in case you need to do it all over again from scratch. And so that's the procedure. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Of course, if you need help, feel free to contact me. Take care. Bye-bye.